Alright, sorry about that. I just had to remake this video because some people's partial IP was showing, and I don't want to leak that so they somehow get like DDoSed. So I'm just going to go through the explanation of the MOS logs, but MOS is not like a shitty faulty program like Nash claims. It gets updates regularly. It's been used in other large games and other video game leagues. So, it just gets regularly updated. Like, we've had no problems with it. The only people who've had problems is they had trouble installing it. And that's pretty normal. So, like, that's not out of the ordinary for most programs, honestly. So, let's look at the first log. So, the problem is why I truly believe that Nash is cheating with, the help of MOS anti-cheat to back me up, is mainly this graph right here is the mouse fast moves aimbot graph. What this graph shows is every time that like a flick happens, it notates it. The bottom number here is the number of pixels that the jump occurred. So it goes by 50, so 000, 0050, 0100, It's vertical, so it's kind of annoying to look at. And then the left side number is just how many times it happened. So, there were 100, at 150 pixels, there were 6 events. So that's what that means. Well, why does this make me think he's cheating? Well, the top end normal range for humans is 800 to 900 pixels. So we have all of these events out here outside of the human range. Another problem with this is that this is tracking mouse inputs, and Nash is using a controller. I've spoken with the developer of this anti-cheat, and he states that these results should not be happening. It should be impossible. So he is basically agreeing here that Nash is cheating. There is also a decent amount of keystrokes with a large percentage of patterns found for the amount of keystrokes that happened, which is also looking at someone's keyboard. That's also really suspicious. Well, let's look at the other log. And you can verify this is him. It's his user. There's his computer specs. This one doesn't look crazy. There's like 2 outside the range here. Nothing insane. Still a large amount of patterns found for some kind of macro. And based on the amount of keystrokes, that's a really high percentage of patterns to keystrokes. Here's another graph where there's multiple chartings of outside of human range. Not a lot of patterns found on this one. More of the same thing. Outside the human range, a large percentage of patterns for total number of keystrokes. Another game. This one's insane. This is the most insane graph like I've ever seen. Look at how many there are outside of the human range constantly. Still a decent amount of patterns found, but not as much. But this, you can't ignore this. This should not be happening. It's impossible. I tried testing using a controller, switching to my mouse, tabbing out, browsing different internet, because that was his first excuse as to why this was happening. Nothing ever picked up. Not ever past 900. Never. And I use a much higher DPI than Gnash does. There is no logical explanation behind this. Zero. And these other two games were after he found out that I thought he was sus. So, you know, the data from that isn't very good. Let's take a look at some other players. Let's check out Ink. "66 keystrokes, 2 patterns, that's like nothing. 1 event, 450, nothing. This literally shows nothing. Here's Omni Micro. It's not that crazy. Like, basically nothing. Patterns found. 21. It's essentially nothing. Remix. Nothing. And the results that these players are getting, Ink, Micro, Remix, all that, consistent across the board with every other controller player that is using and running Moss. Just nothing shows up because it shouldn't. There's no reason for it to. Not on a hardware level, not like it looks like a cheat is injecting mouse movements into his game. Let's look at Omistar. This is someone who plays on a very high sense, high DPI on a mouse. He has a lot of keystrokes because he's mouse and keyboard, but his percentage of patterns is very low, even though there's 184. 427 events, all at 500 or less. And this person is constantly touching their mouse. And the data just continues in that trend. There's one consistent outlier, and it's Gnash. On a controller, getting a lot of events outside of the human range. In multiple games, it wasn't a one-time fluke. All the time. Almost every game. So, I'm going to try to reach out to Radar about it to see if he could help me. I'll show you what he said. And you can just pause and read it. But essentially, yeah, he wasn't very interested in looking at it. I sent a message to CMG about it. They said they would look at it, and then they just ignored me and did nothing. So, you know, I have concrete evidence of people using an anti-cheat, and it's saying that they're cheating. The developer of the anti-cheat is saying that he's cheating. The data shows that he's cheating. These people are not interested, and they don't care. It's just, yeah, it's a terrible look for Rogue Company.